Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of Mad Money. So today we're going to be talking about the differences between Robinhood and M1 Finance. We're probably going to talk a little bit about the pros and cons as well. Really hope you guys enjoy this video. Put a little bit more time into it than normal and just kind of want to walk through each of the different brokerages so you guys can kind of see what fits your portfolio strategy and maybe your investing strategy as a whole, because there definitely is some pluses and minuses of both brokerages for sure. I do enjoy both brokerages for what it is worth. I have been investing with Robinhood for, I think, since 2014, 2015, although I didn't really fund the account too much. And M1 Finance, I really started at the end of last year. And I've really taken more so to M1 Finance because it fits a little bit more of my investing strategy. And we'll probably get into a little bit as to why. So, hopping first into Robinhood, I guess, let's just blow up this page here. And of course, you can see the user interfaces for both. We're not really going to touch specifically on that, but more so what each platform does or does not do. And in this case, Robinhood is really good for single stock investments, options trading for the beginners. You can also do cryptocurrencies on Robinhood for those of you guys that are interested in that. And more recently, you've been able to start doing fractional shares and dividend reinvestment in Robinhood, but we'll touch a little bit on some of the caveats with that a little bit later. So, just quickly getting into how you can basically buy and sell things on Robinhood. Don't want to get too much into that aspect of things, but you can see here on the right basically just gives you an outline of the stocks that you have in the portfolio and a watch list if you have one, and the cash that you have on hand. Now, you do get some APR cash if you wait on a wait list. So that $4.91 there, or just under $5, is now getting interest. But of course, you have to wait on a wait list in order to get that. That's one of the big things that I would say Robinhood does that M1 Finance does not, is they make you wait on wait lists for about everything. And that hasn't changed. So that was a big thing back in 2014, getting on wait lists before you're actually able to download the app. Then once you actually get the app, get on wait lists. And in order to kind of advance, you kind of have to share Robinhood with a bunch of people. So it's effective on their part to try to get the application out to as many people as possible, because people are wanting to get off the wait list for certain things. But that being another thing, I mean, there's so many free services now with M1 Finance and different brokerages as well, like Fidelity and Vanguard. I don't necessarily see a reason for that sort of thing. Um, Getting into M1 Finance is rather interesting as well. You can trade individual securities, and there's no problem with that at all. But you can trade a little bit of ETFs as well. You can make your own pies, which I think is a big thing, which we'll touch on in some of the little bit later parts of this. You can also do some research as well. You can do research on Robinhood, but I think the research on M1 Finance is a little bit better. You do also have the ability to do M1 Spend and get some interest on the cash that you have in the portfolio, but you do have to do M1 Plus for that, which is an added fee. Um, and you do have a little bit of direct investment that you can do, an automatic investment that you can do in M1 Finance, which is something that you can't do on Robinhood. You can't say, hey, I want to invest $250 into these set of stocks, go. And you can do direct deposit with both. You can do direct deposit with Robinhood, direct deposit with M1 Finance. I do that currently with both, as well as I'm trying to ramp up both of these portfolios. But I definitely see myself being more into the M1 Finance sort of passive aspect of things, kind of doing like a portfolio management aspect of things. Whereas Robinhood, I feel, is a little bit better if you're kind of a trader. You can do instantaneous investments, which is something we'll touch on as well. Robinhood, if you want to buy a stock, you can buy it now. You can put limit orders. You can do all that. M1 Finance, it's basically within a time window. You have to basically say, hey, between 9 and 11 a.m., I want to purchase these stocks, and it'll purchase it first thing in the morning. And so you might not be able to do a limit order. Might not necessarily be able to choose the best price for the day, or say, hey, I want to wait till this goes down another 15 cents before I execute. It's more so based off of the allocation percentages within your sort of pie, which you can kind of create. And we'll touch on that in just a moment. So, I guess before we dive deeper into some of these things, I made a quick list for you guys to basically look at some of the key differences and similarities between Robinhood and M1 Finance. And I think this is relatively interesting and hopefully can give you guys a little bit of an idea as to what might fit into your investing strategy. So, Robinhood and M1 Finance are both insured from a securities insurance perspective. So Robinhood has up to $250,000. So basically, if Robinhood goes defunct as a brokerage, you have up to $250,000 and whatever securities that's in there, whether that's cash, whether that's a bunch of different securities. It's insured up to $250,000. That's not going to secure any losses. That's strictly just the fact that they are kind of your holding agent that holds your stock certificates in on behalf of you. And M1 Finance is about $250,000 for cash only for Roth IRAs and things along those lines, and then 500,000 for securities as well. So you have a little bit of a one up in M1 Finance being about twice as much insured from a security standpoint. Both do free transaction fees, but a caveat to this is Robinhood, you can do limit orders and market orders and a bunch of different other things, whereas M1 Finance, there's one selling period throughout the day and maybe a second if you actually want to do the M1 Plus sort of program, which allows you to purchase things in the latter half of the afternoon as well. Um, Robinhood does not allow you to do automated investing. And what I mean by that, I'll kind of touch on that probably a little bit deeper. But um, with M1 Finance, you can do automated investing. And basically, what it does is you put in your $250, let's say, on a monthly basis via direct deposit. And that will automatically go into the pie that you kind of set up. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Fractional shares, immediately you can do that with M1 Finance. With Robinhood, you have to do a wait list, and if you are popular enough and get enough people to sign up, you can basically get off that wait list. Otherwise, you can wait for several months. I mean, just for example, I can't tell you how long ago I signed up for fractional shares with Robinhood. It was months, right? And now every single brokerage, Fidelity, Vanguard, M1 Finance, they allow you to do fractional share investing from the get-go. So I think it's a little bit interesting as to why Robinhood is really trying to get you to do that. And with fractional shares, you do get dividend reinvestment with Robinhood, whereas before you obviously could not. With M1 Finance, that was immediate. You didn't have to worry about that. By creating unique portfolios, what I basically mean by that is you can kind of set up an automatic kind of allocation. Um, Whereas in Robinhood, you can't do that at the moment. It's more of a manual. You either buy or sell a share of, say, this security or this ETF, or sell that ETF. And in M1 Finance, you can kind of put up, hey, I want to have, let's just say, these assortment of ETFs or these sectors kind of be X percentage, and based off of whatever amount kind of goes in, $250, it'll spread it out into that sort of amount. So you can choose to set up certain allocations or just say, I want 25% of whatever I put in to go into, say, this particular account. And that is all set up based off of this pie system. So you can kind of see, I have it set up as 20, 20, 10, 25, 25 for these stocks here mentioned on the left. And you can see what the actual target allocation is. So you can actually say, you want 20% to go to Johnson & Johnson regardless of whatever your target is, or you can set it up as, hey, I only want to invest in those companies, let's say, if they're below my target, which is nice. You can't really do that with Robinhood. With Robinhood, you get your $250 and it kind of just sits in your account. For example, this $4.91 that I have, I can't just say, hey, I want it to automatically go into GM. I have to physically go into the app and do that. But the nice thing is you can say, hey, I want to buy GM at $21.46. Whereas in M1 Finance, you kind of just say, hey, I want to buy $5 worth of GM, and you wouldn't necessarily be able to choose at what price, right? I mean, it could spike very early in the morning and you could end up having to spend $22, $23 per share. Whereas on Robinhood, you could buy $21.46 if that's what you wanted. So pluses and minuses associated with that for sure. So that's nice because with respect to M1 Finance, like I have here, you can kind of just set up your individual portfolio. I mean, this is automatically going to go $250 is going to be split between IBB and QQQ easily for me. I don't have to do anything. Depending on what sort of percentage it is, some of more of it might go into QQQ, some more of it might go into IBB. So it's nice that I don't have to worry about that. Whereas in Robinhood, I've been trying to stack up on my GM and my Southern Company shares, and I had to get in $250 and then say, wow, okay, well, how many shares of GM do I want versus how many of SO? It'd be nice if I could just put in $250 and it splits it evenly, and I don't have to worry about that. And of course, before then, I had to worry about whole shares and if I had to purchase whole shares. And I think I still am only able to buy whole shares. I don't think I can buy fractional shares yet. I think I still might be on the wait list. So that's one of the other things that you have to keep in mind with respect to Robinhood. With respect to interest on cash, basically being in a money market account, same thing with Robinhood. You have to be on a wait list, and after you're off that wait list, it's 0.3%. APR, which is actually pretty decent compared to, I guess, most checking accounts. But it's poor compared to most accounts now. I know my personal savings account with American Express is currently at 1.5%. And so that does have a little bit more stipulations, though. I can only make a certain amount of transactions in it. So not exactly too sure at the moment what interest on cash is for, say, some of my money market accounts in Fidelity. For M1 Finance, it's 0% for non-plus members, so non-M1 Plus members. If you are an M1 Plus member, currently it's sitting at about 1%. So M1 Plus is like a $99 a year. It allows you to do some preferred sort of investing with margin and some basically the preferred interest on cash that you get here. So that's that aspect of things. With respect to options, you can trade options on Robinhood. I've done it, not successfully, but I've done it, and you cannot do it on M1 Finance at the moment. One other thing that I noticed though is looking at international stocks. Like if you wanted to buy on, say, the Hong Kong exchange or any sort of other exchange like that, like the Canadian exchanges in Toronto, you can't buy those, right? You would have to buy either an American equivalent or not at all. And so that's interesting because in, say, like a Fidelity or Vanguard, you have no problem buying on some of these international exchanges if you can find them. So I don't know if that's something you're going to be offering in the future. And keep in mind also that a lot of these, the Robinhood and M1 Finance, are not really available to people outside of the US. So it is a great service, and I think a lot of people internationally would love to utilize both of these services, but they're not able to be utilized outside of the US. So for folks that are watching this, which is about 30 to 40% of the audience in this video, is, they're not going to be able to utilize it, which is kind of a shame because it does offer good advantages in a quick way for folks to be able to start investing. And the same with it over-the-counter stock. So I was looking at a company recently, and actually two companies recently that are trading OTC. So I'm trying to do a little bit more spec investing because, I have about $450,000 under management at this point, and it warrants about 1 or 2% of the portfolio being in sort of speculative plays, which sometimes those are on over-the-counter sort of markets. So that being said, I was looking them up on Robinhood and also M1 Finance just to see on an M1 Finance aspect of things if I could be able to do it over the course of a couple weeks instead of, say, all at once. And wasn't available on an M1 Finance to add to the pie. And same thing with Robinhood, wasn't able to add it to my watch list. And so that led me to having to invest in it on my Fidelity accounts, which is fine. I like my Fidelity. It's where about 80% or so of my stocks currently sit in terms of value. And so I didn't mind investing in a Fidelity, but I wanted to, do a quick check on Robinhood and M1 Finance. And obviously that was unable to be obtained. And so that's kind of a pain, and really wish that it did because it might allow people to have a little bit more flexibility. But I think it I don't necessarily know why they wouldn't be able to do it. With respect to interest on margin borrowing, so people that are interested in margin are probably more advanced with respect to their investing career, or have a little bit more experience. Fingers crossed that you do. That means you're basically taking money from Robinhood or M1 Finance at a specified rate to be able to invest. And so, what that basically means is if I borrow $1,000 for, let's say, Robinhood, I'm going to have to pay 6% or so APR, um, per anything below $50,000, which in this case, $1,000 is less than 50,000. So I'm going to have to pay 6% a year, $60 for the year on that. Now, of course, if the stock that I invest in goes to zero, I still owe Robinhood that money. So it's not like that's $1,000 that you get to keep, right? It's like a credit card, right? I mean, it's a credit card that you're basically saying, hey, 6% every single year until I pay it off, right? And I think you have to pay a portion of that monthly, right? So it's about 0.5% every single month, if you think about it that way. 5% it goes down to if you invest anything above 50,000, right? So if you're withdrawing $60,000 to invest in something, so you have a bigger account, then it's going to be a little bit more favorable in terms of an interest rate, for you to be able to do that. M1 Finance is a little bit better. So normal users get about 3.5%. So almost half that of what you would get from Robinhood, or probably 25% if you were to invest above 50,000. Whereas if you're an M1 Plus member, so you'd have to pay the $99 annual fee for the first year for M1 Plus. That would allow you to get it at 2%. So it could be favorable in that respect. And 2% is a phenomenal rate. I mean, that is pretty good. I mean, in Fidelity at the moment, not that I really utilize margin all too much, but I think last time I checked, it was like 8.5%. Maybe it's come down a little bit just based on the fact that interest rates have kind of been cut. But I remember at best I've ever seen Fidelity, it was like 6.5, 7%. And that was a couple years back. So in terms of competitiveness on terms of margin borrowing, interest on margin borrowing, M1 Finance is key, and up there, probably the winner that I've seen. And there are a couple other ones that I saw were at about 3.5% for normal users, but 2% for premium users is A class. If you are a premium user, that is pretty absurd. That's pretty good. So yeah, that's just a quick rundown with respect to what you can do and can't do between the two. I personally have been adding about $250 to both every single first in the middle of the month, so about $500 to each account every single month. Um, so, I've been trying to do that since the beginning of the year just to see what's kind of going on. And to be honest, I really like the carefree, sort of laid back aspect of things that you get with M1 Finance, especially if you're more of a passive investor. You don't want to do individual, I guess, security investing. You don't have enough time. I think M1 Finance is a phenomenal way to go. It allows you to kind of rebalance the portfolio really quickly. In this case, like if I wanted to rebalance, because you can see some of these things are out of allocation, like my Johnson and Johnson's 34, almost 35%, whereas I want it to be at 20%. It's really just a click of a button. I could just click this, hit confirm, and it would, the next trading day tomorrow, it would kind of sell and buy things to allocate it to the percentage that I kind of want to. And you can do that as often or as little as you want. You can do it every day. You can do it once a month. You can do it every 6 months. Whereas in Robinhood, you'd have to do that manually, and that's one thing that it kind of concerns me, sort of, kind of. I mean, you can't even see really what the allocation is unless you kind of open it up, and then you can't really see what's good. So you can see in this particular case, 65% of my Southern Company shares are in, 65% of this $2,000 is in Southern Company, but you can't see pretty quickly how much is in some of these other companies unless you click on, say, GM or Royal Dutch Shell. So that's just like one of the advantages of M1 Finance. You could quickly start to kind of do things, and it's real easy to kind of just like add things in, you know what I mean? So if you want to go to edit and add something, you could just be like, hey, I actually want to start investing in Microsoft. let's add it, and it's easy to just be like, hey, I'm going to add 5% of Microsoft. You trim off, let's say, 20 or 5% to make the IBB 20%, and boom, now you're going to start investing in Microsoft, no problem. Whereas before, you did have that sort of issue, where you'd have to choose how many shares you want to invest, and it kind of just makes things a little bit difficult. It simplifies things to the point where it makes things real easy. Sometimes too simple, where I think people might be spreading it out amongst too many stocks where they should just buy an ETF. But I think the M1 Finance, in my opinion, is something that's really good. If you're an active trader, though, day trader, completely understand why Robinhood would probably be your go-to. It's a little bit more selective with respect to limit orders, options trading, so you can hedge some of your bets as well. So I think that both are phenomenal to keep in mind when you're kind of investing in this newer age, and both have phenomenal applications for your phone, so you could look at them while you're on the go and not necessarily have to be at a desktop like I am right now. But I honestly think that you should compare and contrast what you think is best for your particular investing strategies, and how often and how frequent you're going to be trading, and how much you're contributing on a day-to-day basis. I mean, if you are trading and you don't have much time, or sorry, you're investing, you don't have much time, like let's say you're investing twice a month, every paycheck or something like that, and you don't have the time to go in and choose how many shares and do manual allocation, M1 Finance makes it real simple for you. But if you're investing in, say, particular stocks, or you're day trading and you have extra time on your hands, let's say you're trading in between classes and you're trying to make a quick $100 here, $200 there, doing some options trading to hedge some of your bets, Robinhood is probably something that might be up your alley, because you can buy and sell, within seconds if really necessary. But one of the key things that has happened in the past that I've seen for Robinhood, which I have yet to see for M1 Finance, is Robinhood has gone down before, and sometimes in crucial times, like in very early March timeframe, or late February. There was a huge move in the market. A lot of people wanted to buy in, and unfortunately, Robinhood was down and sporadically available for a day, day and a half. And so a lot of people wanted to either sell securities or buy securities on the dip up or the run up, and weren't able to do that, or they also wanted to sell securities in a dip down, and they weren't able to do that either. So Robinhood, not sure if they've addressed why exactly that happened. If anybody knows, please leave it in the comment section down below. But that's just my opinion of the differences between Robinhood and M1 Finance. And I think both are great, and you should consider both. And if you're curious and want to invest in any of them, feel free to visit the links down in the description below. You could potentially get a free stock if you invest with Robinhood, or you can get $10, or maybe it's $100 with M1 Finance. I forget. But regardless, if you're curious what I'm investing in, my pie, and you also are curious with investing with M1 Finance and giving it a try, links in the description as well. So hope this video finds you guys great, and I really hope that it allows you to understand the differences and what best feeds into your investing strategy. If you found this video useful, please share it with a friend, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Cheers.